Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Feel Better Thursdays, your how to guide to help you navigate what I call the sacred and messy art of being human. My name is Isabel Tierney, and I'm so honored and excited today to have Raya Schroeder with us. She's a beloved member of our community, and our how to today that you're going to walk away with is how to stop overeating and love your body. And you are, if you stay through the whole 30 minutes, we're going to just do 30 minutes here, you will not only get exactly what the methodology is and how to use it. And Raya is going to share how she used it for ending overeating. And she actually lost 30 pounds in the process. But also, you're going to walk away with an ebook, a gift that is so incredible that will allow you to practice what you've learned in this live, like right away. So make sure to stay tuned till the end. And those people who are on the StreamYard live, I say hello to you. I'm going to focus, or on any of the lives, I'm going to be focusing really on the interview. And then Raya and I will answer all of you afterwards. Does that sound good, Raya?
Sounds great.
Okay, great. And what I want to talk about is, let's begin with the overeating. So as many people know, I struggled with binge eating and bulimia for many years. So overeating was like the wound that I carried with me for almost 30 years of my life. So it's a really very deep, passionate subject for me. And I know it is for you too, Raya. And what we usually see when we talk about overeating, the way people deal with overeating, the way I did, the way you're going to talk about, is you try to not overeat. And most of us are very deprivational. We're going to eat perfectly healthy, right? Like, we're going to eat perfectly healthy and we're going to work out. And then when we fail, then we give ourselves such a hard time. So then shame just starts really getting stronger and stronger. Then this shame usually leads us to overeat again. And then we feel bad. And it's this loop of shaming and stress. And that creates this whole thing that we call overeating. And today we want to blow it apart. We want to blow that loop apart by using the methodology and teaching you how to show up differently when you have the impulse to seemingly overeat, and what to do if you've actually have overeaten. So I want to first share the tool. So I'm going to take like 3 minutes and I'm going to share the tool that Raya will be talking about. And that's the methodology. And what the tool, the structure of the tool is very simple. It is awareness plus action equals transformation. So you first have to be aware of where you are, what you want to do, what your impulses are, what you feel, before you can decide if you want to change. And then once you do, you can take the action to create transformation. So the methodology has these two components in it, right? That's its structure. The feel-good scale is the awareness piece of the equation. So as you will see, the scale is 1 to 10. Red zone is the stress response. It's at the top of this triangle, and we are only able to fight, flight, or freeze. And then the green zone is at the bottom of the triangle, and that is where everything you long for, like the being that you know you are, which is love and connection and magic and generosity and gratitude and all the things, they live in the green zone. In the red zone lives who we don't want to be, the reactive, impulsive, overeater, can hurt themselves or others. And so this work helps you identify where you're at on the scale. And if you are in the stress response, it invites you to take 3 steps. And Raya is going to super slow-mo those steps with us. So I'm going to move through them fast. The first step is to stop and not believe who we are in that red zone, in that stress response. Step number 2 is using our breath to start teaching our nervous systems that we are safe, that we don't need to be in fight, flight, or freeze. And step number 3, you go to a feel-good habit. That's a habit that brings you and allows you to stay sustainably in the green zone. So I want to turn now this talk to Raya. Raya, I want you to introduce yourself, and especially like, what is it that you used to struggle with? And then using what we just spoke about, the map of the methodology, let us know how you used it, and welcome.
Hey, well, thank you first of all for having me here. I'm so happy.
I know the sun is so crazy this
I
morning.
know, I'm like, it's sunny in Colorado that I feel like I'm just gonna have to move this a little bit, maybe get out of the way a little bit. So yeah, what I used to struggle with is I would overeat, and I had a higher weight. I was never really comfortable in my body to begin with. And then during COVID, I actually gained 15 pounds. And that was kind of this awakening for me to realize, like, okay, I would really like to lose weight. It kind of pushed me to want to be open to different tools and want to be open to different ways that could help me. And I tried a lot of traditional routes. I tried, what does one do if they're trying to fix overeating? Or I went on Google, I read different books. But then it was right around the time that you were doing your foundational course. And I just decided to be open to the methodology. And so I remember finding your work and really resonating with the piece that you were saying about when we're in the stress response, we are impulsive and we're reactive and we can't control our behavior. And so you had us tracking ourself daily on the feel-good scale. And I had this huge aha moment because that was the first time in my life that I made a correlation between where I was in terms of stress, in terms of my emotional state in the present moment, and the urge, the impulse to overeat. And so for me, they became inextricably tied. It was like so predictable. Every time I would go into the red zone, I wanted to overeat. And that just had me so curious. I was like, oh my gosh, so this is tied to stress. This is tied to anxiety. This is tied to feeling sad, to feeling lonely. And it's these feelings, this internal trigger that is causing me to want to do this behavior. And that was just huge for me. It was this huge insight of like, wow, this is actually serving a really numbing function, a really soothing, a really comforting function. And I need to learn how to just be with these emotions a different way. And so that is what the methodology helped me do.
Yeah, so that's the awareness part, right? So I'm going to repeat back what Raya said as a teaching moment. So Raya would track herself on a 1 to 10 on the feel good scale, and she realized it seems so simple. The thing with this work is it's so simple that sometimes people kind of miss it because they're like, oh, this is just too simple. Of course, I know that stress causes my overeating, but really start really tracking that community. Like when you are about to do something painful, whether it's to yourself by overeating, for example, or to another, you want to get into conflict with another, track yourself. You will likely be in the red zone where we lose our capacity to think rationally. It's not our fault. It's what happens in the stress response. And Raya, you sort of really realizing like, oh my God, every time I want to overeat, I'm in the red zone. Right? And what did that do for you to understand that there was a clear correlation between the red zone and your overeating? How did that help you?
For me, I really don't want to understate like the gravity of that insight. Like I really for the longest time was like, what is wrong with me? That I'm trying to lose weight and then I just sabotage my progress. And like anybody who knows that experience knows how frustrating it can be. And beyond frustrating that you're not hitting your goals and you're just you're taking 2 steps forward, you're taking 2 steps back. You know, you have this intention, but then you just keep disappointing yourself again and again and again, and this relationship with yourself where you maybe self-identify as somebody who just can't keep promises to myself or can't achieve my goals or can't follow through. And it's so challenging, really. And then having that insight it took me from realizing I am this broken person who just can't achieve my goals and can't do this to it is not my fault. And it gave me the missing piece. It was like, oh, I only need to solve one piece of the puzzle. The only thing that's happening is I'm getting stressed, I'm getting anxious, I'm feeling alone, I'm feeling sad at different points of the day throughout the week, especially during COVID. And I just need to figure out a different way to manage my emotions. And so I started to see myself in a completely different way where I could turn on this lens of compassion, no longer seeing myself as this broken person who just has a problem they can't fix, to like, wow, I have some, like, I'm just sad. I'm just feeling really anxious and overwhelmed and flustered in this moment. And I noticed that, like, this is what I go to try to regulate and feel better and feel okay. And it just was huge. It was like, wow, this is the only thing in my life, one of the only things in my life that helps me feel okay quickly.
Yeah, I love that. So good. So let's go there. So far, right? Raya is talking about the awareness part of the equation. And it's interesting because I didn't used to have the three steps till what, like 3 years ago, I think it was. Because often just recognizing, oh, I'm in the red zone. It's not my fault who I become. It's what the stress response has me do. Oh, I need to get myself to the green zone because I'm a completely different human being in the green zone. I'm somebody who's conscious and can respond and not react. So that was often enough. So that's what you're talking about so far. But thankfully, we did add the action part of the equation and the three steps. So once you would realize you were in red, it wasn't your fault, you brought kindness and compassion to yourself. Tell us about taking the three steps into the next part of your work.
So what I would do to apply the three steps is I would track myself at the day, notice I'm in the red zone, having those intense emotions. And then step one is to stop. I would have the impulse to overeat as usual, but instead of doing that, I would just stop and sit with myself in the moment. And then in step two, you have a slow down, breathe. And that was really critical because just doing that started to help regulate my body and help me slow down and start to feel better already. And then when you go to step three, actually, I guess I want to pause in step two because step two, first of all, step one and step two can be a little bit challenging when you have something that you've been struggling with for so long. You have this behavior, like the impulse is so strong, right? The impulse to do the same old thing that you do every single time, this ingrained pattern of behavior, is so strong. And so step two was really this meditative practice for me, where I would sit with myself and I just would notice all of these flurries of thoughts. I would notice like all these different body sensations, this strong urge to overeat, to just like devour everything in my cabinet and like go to the freezer, get a pint of ice and like bury myself in it, right? And so all of this was present. But it is about bringing a different response to the same set of, let's call them stimuli, right? All that's present, and the way I used to respond was one way, but now it's all present again, and I'm going to respond a different way this time. So I would just really just meditate, honestly. I would notice that impulse, but I realized I didn't have to act on it. I realized I could feel this thing tugging at me. I could feel myself wanting to do that thing. But with steps, I could just take space from it. I could be with it and witness that at a distance and start to regulate myself, bring more breath. And with each passing breath, it was like that impulse started to get further and further and further and further away, which was really cool to realize I could be with the impulse.
Yeah, I want to say something about the beautiful thing you're saying. So the trick that Raya is talking about, her capacity to be with herself, with the urges, with the sensations, they might be some of you. By the way, please let us know if you're here live or if you'll be here on the replay, and please respond, like what resonates with you about what we're talking about. Let us know. We want to know how this is impacting you. But what Raya was talking about could not have happened and will happen with you if you practice this work unless you first stop and you realize you're in a distorted mode. Like, so part of why I love teaching the course so much is like, we think the stop step is such a light thing. Like, oh, just stop. Like, oh, just stop. No, stop is when you realize you've been taken in by a distortion, that the way you're seeing yourself or your desire to overeat isn't true. And then, Raya, the slowing down and breathing, we are regulating our nervous system. So had you stayed fully in the red zone, there's no way you could have stopped and gone into these deep meditations of being with your sensations. So I want to say to people, even though Raya sounds very skilled, what the reason she could do this was because she did the steps. And so just like, don't underestimate the simplicity of the work, don't underestimate the power of each step. And you can study them lifelong, and you can use them in the mornings, in every moment. So Raya, stop, slow down and breathe, be with the urges, right? That was step number 2, create space. And then step number 3, go for a feel-good habit. What would you do then?
What I would do then is I would just do something that was going to address the underlying emotions that I felt. And so I would take a bath, light a candle, put on some music, which was all really foreign to me, by the way. I didn't have things in my life that were self-care oriented, that were oriented to help me soothe anxiety, that were loving, right? So it felt unfamiliar at first, but it felt really positive. Sometimes I'd go for a walk, and I lived in Boulder at the time, like right around this beautiful creek, Evan Define Park, if you know where that is. And so step 3 really about how do I address the anxiety, the stress, these frantic emotions in a different way. And it started to create this really positive association with the 3 steps where it felt so good. It got me feeling calmer. It got me feeling grounded, this like upward positive relationship, so that next time doing the 3 steps, it was like, oh yeah, I'm going to feel good if I do that.
Oh, I love that. It's like for both things, for red zone actions and yellow and green zone actions, it's the gift that keeps on giving, right? If you take action from the red zone, and that's impulsive and reactive, whether it's overeating, whether it's yelling at somebody, whether not procrastinating, it's a gift that keeps on giving. You're going to get more of the red zone. But if you're like, no, I'm not. I can stop. I don't have to take action from this impulse, even though the impulse feels so strong because it's telling us it's a life and death situation. That's the power that we talk about in the course. That's not your fault. Your body thinks you're in a life and death situation. So the urge to overeat, the urge to yell at somebody feels so urgent. And so to stop, realize it's a lie, it's a distortion, it's an exaggeration, slow down and breathe. Wind down your nervous system, and then do something that feels good, that keeps you in that red zone. So guess what? Now the new loop is, oh, that felt good. Next time I'm in the red zone, I'm going to practice this again because I want to feel good, right? Did I get that right about what you're saying?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I know there's a couple other things that you told me about that you wanted to share that were really helpful, kind of puzzle pieces to make this experience and this transformation be so potent. You want to share those?
Yeah, I think one of the things that strikes me is, or actually, I want to say that like this process, if you would explain this process to me when I was where I was, like I don't, and I had maybe not heard it through your course, right? And maybe not heard it through this through this webinar, for example. Like it might have seemed a little bit too simple to me to really work. So I just really want to understate that it appears simple on the surface, but underneath it, there is so much neuroscience that is backing this thing up. And I really experienced that in my life when I was practicing it. Because you said that, it was really inspiring to me when you said it takes us scientifically 4 weeks to change your behavior, because that's how long it takes the brain to start dissolving these familiar neural pathways and start building and reinforcing new neural pathways. And so to realize that you were tracking what was happening neurologically in our brain that this was based in science. That was what I needed to start to trust that this thing would work. And I was just fascinated by, changing the structure of our brain and building like new neural highways, building absolutely brand new structure and scaffolding. And it was my experience that after implementing this many times, it did get easier. At first, step one, it's like, the whole thing is so foreign. And you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm in the eye of the storm right now. I am sitting with these emotions that are at level 10 and I am so unfamiliar and I'm doubting if like, is this thing really going to work? Like there's that part of my brain that's like, this is dumb, right? Is this really going to work? And then it's so challenging, but over time, it does become easier. It does become easier to practice the 3 steps. The impulse becomes so much quieter, and the impulse to do the feel good bit, that bath, that listening to music is so much louder. And so I wanted to say that to encourage anybody who might be in this place. You might be skeptical about what we're sharing. I just want to say it is based in science, and the more that you practice it, the easier it becomes. You start to build this skill and you start to get wins under your belt. And that is so cool because you start to have a new identity and experience yourself where instead of you're somebody who always disappoints yourself, you're somebody who starts having wins and somebody who starts keeping their promises. And so
Oh.
I just love that.
You know what's so funny? I thought you were saying having wings. You start having wings. And I was like, oh, that is so beautiful. And that fit perfectly. I was like, you start having wings beneath, you start having the wind beneath your wings and you start like flying more and more. And then you said it again. And it was like, oh, she meant wings. But I actually love that with this work, you start having wings many of you know, I love angels more than anything. My kids gave me this angel for my birthday. And it is, you start having wings. And I see Barb says something about that. It's so simple, but so hard. And then it's encouraging to hear it gets easier. So thank you for bringing that in. So, one of the metaphors that I love to use is of a superhighway, that our habit, for example, of overeating is like a superhighway in your brain. From the time you have the thought about overeating to doing it, you just fly down. Now, when you develop a new neural pathway, the one of choosing something else than overeating, something more constructive, you actually think about it, a highway. You first have to stop. You have to stop the cars from continuing to go down that highway, slow down and breathe. And then you have to start going into the new path. But the new path is not a super highway at the beginning. It's like this jungle path. And so literally in your brain, the new path are almost don't exist. You have to build them. But the more you use them, the more eventually the new habits, the positive habits become your new superhighway. And what Ryan was very clearly talking about is the old thing that was a superhighway slowly starts growing over and becomes the jungle, so that I don't even have the urge to overeat anymore after 30 years of a severe eating disorder. So yes, it works. And so I love the way you describe that. I think that one of the pieces that we also love about this work, that I know you've told me about, the small sustainable steps. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was really big for me because I was in this place where I felt like I needed to lose the weight yesterday. And so I had put all this internal pressure on myself to change. And then when you said just to broaden the time horizon, but it came with the promise that it would work, it gave me this sense of hope. And I was like, what if I can, like, would I be willing to go slow? I had this inquiry where I was like, why am I going so fast anyways? Why do I feel like I need to escape my present reality so urgently? And it is so uncomfortable here. What I looked and what I found was that it was really fueled by self-hatred. And to have that insight of you helped me soften, really, you helped me realize I could soften my heart around that. That was huge. That was the first step. I realized, it came with the promise of like, if I really practice this thing and I really devote myself to this thing, I believe that I am going to see the change that I want to see. It might not happen on this urgent time scale, but in the meantime, I'm going to work on how much I feel like I hate myself.
Mm.
In the meantime, I'm going to I'm going to work on that, right?
Yeah. You know what I love? The metaphor that comes that's so similar to that is dieting. And the way our culture, it's like lose 10 pounds in a week, right? The dieting culture comes from the red zone. So remember what I said before, the gift that keeps on giving. If you're trying to lose weight because you hate yourself so much and because you have to and it's urgent, there's no way you're going to succeed. And so allowing yourself, like Rana Vraya's foundational practices she's sharing with us, is to start loving yourself. So that's one practice, but also to teach yourself in the moment when you're red, come back to green. The green zone goal for our bodies is not about you can't overeat, you gotta be skinny. The green zone goal is that we fall in love with our bodies, that we take care of our bodies, that we don't hurt our bodies through eating too much food or food that just requires so much energy for the body to digest. So if you take anything from this call, and Lori's saying it's a great call, so simple but so powerful, aha moment. But so apart from that, if you take anything from this call, it is that really everything you do, whatever habit you're trying to heal, first do the 3 steps before you try to solve any problem, before you try to implement any goal, before you try to change any habit. Teach yourself this work, come back to the green zone, and then take action from there. And so I want to encourage people who don't have it yet. I know some people on this call already have it. We have an amazing ebook that allows you to actually recognize what habits of yours are not good habits. They actually lead you to more red zone, and how to build habits that will support and inspire you and have you love your body and stop overeating. And it also teaches the basics of the methodology, and you'll walk away with a toolkit, a feel good habit toolkit that you can use in the moment. So if you want this ebook, it's so it's thefeelgoodlife.com/habits. And I will put it on all the different platforms, thefeelgoodlife.com/habits. And if also we want to just take a moment, let's just take a moment. Raya, let's close our eyes. And if you can, listeners, close your eyes for a moment. And just let's do the scale. Let's just practice the scale in this moment. How do you feel in this moment after having been with us for some of the time or all of the time, live or replay? Maybe you're at the same level you were when you began, or maybe you've shifted. So just track. Am I in the red zone, yellow zone, green zone? 1 is all the way red, 10 is all the way green. Maybe you can track a number. And as we complete this call, before we open our eyes, I want to really invite you to practice just this simple check-in with yourself. If you walk away with the best tool I can give you in this moment is just track yourself on that scale. And if you are in red or yellow, don't take any action and find the easiest, most effective way to get yourself back to green. And I promise that the life you will create from the green zone will be a radically different life than one that you're creating from red or yellow. So if it feels good right now, commit to yourself. I will practice every day, multiple times a day if you want, to track myself on the scale and not take action from any place but the green zone. So let's take a deep breath in and out together, exhaling all of our air, taking a deep breath in, and an audible breath out if you can, and opening our eyes. And Raya, is there one thing that you want to say to complete this beautiful call?
Honestly, so many things. I'm so passionate about this subject. I just really empathize with people's place. I just want to say, check out this tool. I never would have imagined that I could heal this thing that I had been dealing with for so many years. I was in a place of complete like hopelessness and skepticism and cynicism. And I never imagined that I would be here. And I live a completely different life now. And it feels really good to be on, this territory that you never, ever, ever thought was possible. So I just really want to encourage people to check this out. It is the real deal. And more than anything, her heart and her authenticity touched me so much. And it continues to. And I think that's such a necessary component to any healing journey.
I thank you. And I will leave with the word you used that was so perfect, a brand new territory. So yes, it's metaphorical, what Raya is using. It's also psychological, what she's using that word, and physiological. Your brain is literally going to create a brand new territory of new neural pathways that will come from the green zone and not the red zone. So thank you so much. Please make sure to let us know how this live impacted you. That's what we are here for. It's the only way I want to show up every week, is really give you a how-to guide to live this and navigate this sacred and messy art of being human. So the feelgoodlife.com/habits. And Raya, thanks again so much. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.